Welcome to another edition of The Walking Dead.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of EPL on Pub.
Class is in session, hitting the books on Pub Sports.
This is another exciting edition of the main event on Talking Ants.
We are back. It's the College Football Pub Hub Show, a special edition of the show here as we get you ready for TCU and Georgia College Football National Championship game. Ian Cameron, Conor Mac, DJ Big Boss, Big Ragoo, hopefully momentarily as well. We are excited about TCU versus Georgia in the national championship game. The game coming up on Monday night. We're going to give you side, total, player props, everything you can think of regarding the big game. So without further ado, let's get right into it, and we will begin looking at side and total first, and then we'll get into the props after that. We'll start just with side and total. Current line has Georgia 12.5 point favorites in this game. The total currently in the 62.5, 63 range, pretty much across the board. The early line movement actually in this game, if you look at it, it opened 13 on Georgia. It went up to 13.5. We've actually seen some buyback on TCU as it's dipped a little bit down again since then. So very interesting line movement early in the week. I think what we have to look at, first of all, how these teams got here. We start with TCU, a 51-45 win against Michigan, where it seemed like TCU made more of their opportunities than Michigan did. Early in the game, Michigan that breaks off a big run, first drive. They're down first and goal at the 1, and they have a chance to punch it in. They go for a trick play on fourth down. They come up empty. That was a missed opportunity. TCU gets momentum from that. They get a pick six from J.J. McCarthy. They get out to a lead. Michigan answers back what looked like a touchdown. It looked like he caught the ball in the end zone is when he gained possession, yet they said no touchdown. They put it at the 1. Sure enough, the very next play, Michigan fumbles, no points. So 2 trips to the 1-yard line, 0 points for the Michigan Wolverines in that game. And that really changed the complexion of it. TCU was opportunistic. The big play, which is what you have to negate when you play TCU. Michigan could not do it. They broke off many big plays through the air, on the ground, whether it was Duggan to the receivers, whether it was DeMercado, who just had an incredible game running the football for TCU with Kendre Miller banged up early in that game. DeMercado comes in, and he was just absolutely outstanding. Will that continue against Georgia is the question. That offense was in great form. And then you look at how Georgia got here. Well, they survived to get here, essentially, playing, obviously, Ohio State. And look, the secondary was torched like I thought they might, because I don't think that Georgia secondary is spectacular by any stretch. It's the vulnerability of that defense, and Ohio State picked it apart, moved the football up and down the field through the air, over 300 passing yard game for C.J. Stroud. But the difference was, look, Georgia mounted a rally, and Georgia got that late, drive to go ahead. And then, of course, Ohio State misses a field goal. Ruggles, who's an outstanding kicker, one of the best in the country, can't make the game-winning field goal. That ends up being the difference in the end. So you could say both teams escaped to get here. My initial thought is there's a lot of points to be laying with Georgia. I know their statistical profile looks better. I know they come from the mighty SEC, but TCU has outperformed their statistical profile. They've been undervalued all season. There's a very little bandwagon on the betting side of things with TCU against Michigan, and they ended up winning the game outright. I'm a little reluctant early to lay this many with Georgia. So my early lean here is TCU plus the points in this game. My early lean is also the over, just because I worry about whether these two defenses can contain these two offenses. I think TCU will have to throw the ball more because Georgia's run defense is outstanding. Will they be as adept to slow down or throw the football effectively like Ohio State? That's up for debate. But I think when you look at it, my early leans here will be TCU with the points and over the total. We have ourselves Big Ragoo with us. Good to see you, my friend. Glad you're
here. Little power outage in Central Florida.
Is that what it was? Oh, shit.
Do a show without lights.
Wow, man. Always the worst time that kind of thing happens.
Yeah,
it's the way it is. No problem, man. Connor, let's start with you. This is just side and total. We'll get into props after. What do you think? Cool. Your initial thoughts, side and total, TCU, Georgia.
Yeah, I got a few props I think can get in. We'll touch later. Man, this opening line 13.5, just right under 2 touchdowns. was a little bit interesting, and I thought it would come down. I thought we're going to get, money on TCU in this one. You know what? Let's go TCU real quick. Duggan, that offense was good against Michigan, but I got to say that defense, because I think that's their problem, stopping Georgia in the end. 2 pick sixes, like you were talking about. I thought McCarthy had been good all year long, had a great game against Ohio State. He just was not good. And as we saw, it was a 6-point game in the end. Michigan was still able to move it. TCU, kind of the classic Big 12 defense that struggles, and they might struggle like here against Georgia, and I think they will. On the flip side, Georgia, this defense was so good all year, and even against LSU and a couple games before that, it just let it go. So, Ohio State had a great game plan. The only thing with Georgia now is they survived in advance, in that game, and now they feel like, hey, we're gonna, come out and mash this team. It's tough to repeat, back to back. I always think of that as well. It's too early for me too, because I think Georgia could win this game. Max Duggan, how can you let this kid, all he does is fight back, cover the number. I was going through all these crazy things, teams that fail to score 21 points, 1-13 straight up against the number. Teams that score 31 or more, 18-3 straight up, 17-4 ATS. We've only seen a few big favorites of this number, and they haven't got it done the past few years. Florida State was a big one. I remember go back to Ohio State against Miami in that classic game that went down to the wire. I don't know what Georgia defense we're going to get. Georgia's offense is going to score in this football game. I think TCU's defense just won't handle the speed of them. So on the other side, can TCU, if you look their team total real quick, 24.5, I just don't know what Georgia defense will show up. And this might be too many points. I think this game, obviously national championship game, we will be live, will be great to bet. Because you maybe come right out of the gate. That's why I'm not just gung-ho jumping on a side or a total here. Obviously, we've seen in these games kind of got out of hand, and they have been a little bit lately when these great teams get together. Not always they've gone over. So I'm going to wait on that as well. So this is a waiting game for me. Georgia, to me, is the better team, but is 2 touchdowns enough? Man, I'm going in circles, going through everything today while I was studying everything. So let's kick it to Boss next.
Yes. This game, actually, it was talking a little beforehand. The bowl games overall came out to be a little more decent than what I expected from looking at it at paper. Shoot, even Tulane beat USC, believe it or not, but it happened. But this game right here, I was hoping to have more of a Michigan type Georgia game where we could really count the X's and O's and say they sized appropriate and all that. And we can get rid of some of the conference classism and all that kind of stuff. But what do we end up with here? A SEC versus a Big 12 team, which, a lot of people have opinions just on that part right there. Just, those two coming up. I mean, basically some people are going to be betting from that perspective, right? But there's a lot of points involved right here. And if you look at it from judging, if the book knows anything, putting up those points, they know something. Did I see Georgia play football that looked like it could supersede what TCU have to offer? I don't think so. Stetson Bennett can be kind of one-dimensional at times. He can be shook. The running game, it can be slowed down. A few teams showed that in the past. But the only thing that we know definitely is that they're sized appropriate and, they could keep pushing the gas on you and you give up in the second half. So maybe most of the value is in the first half. But, no reason to watch a national championship game with that many points involved and not take the dog to me. You're getting points with a team that qualifies to be in this game. I wasn't a big watcher of TCU earlier in the season, but to watch them play Michigan, I've seen some very impressive things on the field. And one of the ones that kind of sparked my eye is the way, because we knew going into that game that TCU would have to stop Michigan run, and boy, did they go in there and stop them run. But it was kind of weird to me because TCU defensive line, there was no big giant on the defensive line controlling anything, but they were hitting through the gaps and hitting them in the backfield, tackle for loss like crazy. And it was something, it's either a technique or a scheme that the defensive line is doing with the defensive lineman getting through that gap so fast. Like I almost never seen it done that fast. Like those one or two guys were 1 yard in the backfield, which is where you want to be, sitting down 1 yard in the backfield as fast as you can. That's what they'll tell you as a defensive lineman. And those guys were not really big, and Michigan was really sized up, and they were getting into that thing. So I don't know if they were outdoing them because they were slow, and we know that speed can beat strength and strength can beat speed and all that kind of stuff. I don't know exactly what it was. I'm still trying to figure out. Is it something that the defensive coordinator is teaching them, or is it these athletes? Because Sonny Dykes speaks of this group as just being this phenomenal group that loves to play football in every dimension. And from watching them versus Michigan, they were just a wonderful group of young men who love to play the sport and played their hearts out. So I definitely want to take the points with TCU leaving it all on the field. I mean, it's a Cinderella team. They've been counted out so many times, and I believe that they'll give you your money's worth and play their little hearts out. I don't think they got this far to throw it down right here. And from my understanding, there's a few senior guys, and it's not made of a bunch of young guys. It's kind of a mixture of the guys that they had there, because Dykes didn't transfer too many out, but he had a group that was kind of gelled together. So I'm going back to the dog in this situation. The Dogs, to me, have been winning for the most part of the college football bowl games. I see this as another opportunity to take the dog, maybe first half and full game, just to keep it balanced, because they could have a real good game right here. I mean, Georgia's one of those teams that can play lackadaisical sometimes. They're coming off of a big game, Ohio State. They're going into this game against a TCU team they're the shining star. They're never tired. You know what I'm saying? These guys never tired. They come 100% to each game every time. So I like TCU in that spot. Also, as far as the total, I think the total in this game should be bet live, because I mean, you just got to go by what you've been seeing. When it comes to these huge games like this, there's a coaching method where you want to control the ball. There's a lot of precautious things that you want to do, but sometimes these games, a team just come out and score, the other team just get mad and feel like they got to score, and next thing you know, we looking at a shootout. When that goes up 40 points in the first half, who cares about defense the second half? It's all about continue to doing what we've been doing to score, and we're gonna keep pushing the gas. So that's how you get all these high overs that we've been getting in these nice matchups in the last week or so. So I'm not sure which way the total is going to run. I would propose that first half or first quarter that it would come out slow. I mean, if you were Sonny Dykes, would you say, let me try to slow this team down first? I don't know. It's something that you could watch. You could take a few key looks at, what they do, the plays they call, the personnel that they use, and you can make a good determination. Like, are we going to be in for a fight? And with this live betting stuff, you really, and that's the one thing that I believe can beat the algorithms, is like your natural feel for stuff, or to see a twinkle in a guy's eye, or
watching the game,
body motion and stuff like that. And sometimes, I forgot what game it was live. I got the over at 45.5. It was one of those games that went up to like 70, 80 points total. You know what I'm saying? And I just seen it early in the first half. Like, this game's going to get better. Trust me. It looks like a dog fight, and sometimes you got to account for it where there's errors. Like, a team may go down and fumble on the goal line. Well, they almost had 2 times. It could be 14-0, but it's 7-7 or something, and, it has those, like, so I'm going to be looking for a spot like that to determine somewhere in the first half if this game's going to go over. Are we going to, how are they going to come back from the locker room? Are they going to turn it up for the second half, or are we in a slugfest that's just going to stay under and these coaches just play chess to the end of the game? So that's how I'm looking at the total. As far as props, I'm not a big prop guy, but I would go on the side of watching these last few games that first score should be a touchdown. I don't know what you get for that, but first score should be 7.
That's something that was definitely you could see with the first two both games. I think on the semifinals, you're right. Touchdown was the first score. By the way, you're about the under about maybe live over. If you like the over, and I do in this game, maybe wait live. I agree with that. It was, I think, 3-0 after the first quarter last year, Alabama, Georgia in the title game. And 2 years ago, it was Alabama, Ohio State. And even that one was pretty tight early. And then it just exploded second quarter and beyond with the points. So that could be something to consider as well. Big Ragoo, what are you thinking here? Initial thoughts, side and total for the national championship game.
Yeah. Let me start out by saying this. From 12:30, not 12:30 noontime, but 12:30 to date, all the bowl games, starting with that Florida State, through all of them, 95% of them were jam up college football bowl games. They made up for all the shitty games that played early on. So we got our money's worth, people. On no matter which way you went, you were involved in games. You're betting, a fan, whatever it was, you got your money's worth. But this particular game, Georgia got the scare, obviously. With Ohio State was playing very loose. They got their second chance to get in the dance, which we kind of figured they would. And, Georgia, when they had that scare against Missouri early on, they kind of regrouped and bounced back. So do I think we're going to see a high-scoring affair? TCU's got them right where they want them, in my book, because they've been playing these kind of games all year long. They've been escaping. They've been winning, come from behind, everything fell their way. And if you believe in destiny, Mike Leach has got his air, sitting on the sidelines. If we think it's going to be a high-scoring affair, it's going to be Leach ball, air raid Mike Leach type of game. If you believe in a team of destiny, maybe Mike Leach is up in the clouds looking down on this one. Sonny Dykes to get him his national championship. And that's kind of an unusual way to do it. But I'm a firm believer in teams of destiny. And I'm not saying that TCU is going to pull this game out and win it by far, but it just has that kind of a feel to it. This team's been doing it all year long, and I hate to go against teams that are playing this lucky and this well, this late. And you got to give Dugan credit, you got to give Dice credit, just for what he's done, putting this team on the field. Now, I think the past couple years, or 3 or 4 years, it's been a 1-3 matchup. If I'm looking back right on this, so we all should have ran to the window after that Georgia Ohio State game about TCU. Just on that fact. But offensively, they're going to be up. I think they'll be up against it early on. I think the game is going to start out tight. And from a total perspective, I agree. The only way I would look at this one is because you really don't know what you're going to get. I mean, we've seen so many fireworks in the prior games. I mean, are they going to keep pace, the same way? I tend to agree with you, Ian. The way the game started the last couple of years, I think there's going to be some tentative moments early on, and nobody's going to want to make that big mistake. So whether it's a forced fumble or a pick or something like that kind of maybe turns the tide early, and then later on in the second half or second quarter on, it takes its life up of its own. But I would be leaning the first half under. If my initial lean will be on the first half under, and probably taking TCU early on, just taking those points, because you're probably going to get a pretty good number in the first half with TCU, but definitely a live betting opportunity. I think we'll have plenty of opportunities here. And then I think the team totals are like 30 something and 25. So, I don't think we're going to see a ton of points early. I think they come late. So maybe even the second half over, but my initial lean is with TCU here, grabbing the points, early on in the first half,
especially the first half. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I think that would be we mentioned it on Michigan, how they were slow, and I just went back to it. Basically every game TCU cashed again early, maybe even go first quarter, first half. Yeah. If you really like TCU. Yeah. And Georgia struggled. Not every game, and even that LSU game was 14-7, so they might have just covered that. But a ton of first quarters, they did not. They came out slow. They should be up. This is a national championship game. They're going, trying to repeat, but that I'd like the look a little bit if you like TCU and make it a pregame.
As far as people talking about the SEC Big 12 matchup, last time I looked, they had some pretty good football players come out of Texas. So I know these recruits and some of the kids came, with the portal and whatnot, but don't forget this is Gary Patterson's team wholeheartedly. That had a solid ball club. Always was a defensive minded squad, and Dykes flipped the switch pretty quick over there. So I'm sure there's talent all over the field. Just maybe they don't get the recognition. And I looked at some of the size of these kids. There's some big boys on that TCU squad.
If they could get a turnover, though, a pick, something big too, I think that really helped them in that Michigan game. It just did. Those points were huge. Yeah, I think that could be really big for TCU in this game.
I could tell you that first half under could be a good look too, because if in fact TCU defensive line can slow down the running game of Georgia, and we've seen this happen with Georgia a lot, it takes them a little while to figure out where they're going to start passing once that running is gone. And with those Stetson Bennett back there, I don't think so highly of Stetson Bennett. I think he's on a great team. Me and Big Ragoo, with a few less pounds and a couple more push-ups, we probably could get out there and hold it down too.
Yeah, I mean, they're talented. I think this Georgia team is a little more balanced than they were last year. I know defensively they're probably a little bit stronger. I would say the defense outweighed the offense last year, but I think this year it's more evenly matched. So, and that we've seen it a couple of times with them. We've seen them blow a bunch of people out too, but we've seen games where, like you said, they start out slow. And they've had to ramp up. So I think this is, I think this sets well up for TCU early on, to kind of get their game feet, both teams. But I think later in the game, maybe we see a little more high scoring game. I know the total been pulled back, or has it gone up a point?
Pretty much stayed consistent. Yeah, 62 and a half, 63 the total. Here is what I'm thinking.
Movement on the total, but I noticed the line, the numbers come down a little bit from 13.5 to 12.5.
Yeah. There's definitely some movement on the TCU side for sure. 13.5 down to 12.5. TCU was not. There were a lot of people, myself included, that weren't thinking they were going to run the football against Michigan, because Michigan's got a top-ranked run defense, and TCU did with DeMercado, who had 150 rushing yards. He had success. And, Miller wasn't even 100%. We'll have to see if he is in this game. And Georgia falls into that same category where they've got a great run defense too, but TCU was able to shred a very good run defense in Michigan. Can't they do the same against Georgia? I think there's potential. And we know the secondary, there's real issues with Georgia's secondary. Okay, that was 502 passing yards by LSU in the SEC championship game by Nussmeier and Daniels combined, the two quarterbacks in that game. Another almost 400 passing yards for C.J. Stroud last week in the national semifinal against Ohio State. There are suddenly issues and leaks being sprung left and right by Georgia's defense. And that's not what I want to see out of my 12.5, 13-point favorite. Okay, so that's another reason why I'm gravitating toward the TCU side here, plus the points. Let's get into some props here. Before we wrap it up, prop-wise, I've just got two that I've circled. One for TCU and one for Georgia. I like the tight end for Georgia in this game over his receiving yards, Brock Bowers. I think you're going to see Stetson Bennett work the middle of the field. To be quite honest with you, the middle of the field's where Michigan did a lot of their damage offensively. The wide side, not so much. And I think Bowers, we know what a huge target he is over the middle of the field. So his over receiving yards for Georgia is worth a look. And this, to me, the other bet that I like, the player prop that I like on the TCU side, it's a very straightforward, fundamental bet. Whether they can run the football or not, I don't want to put all my eggs in the basket, my money in the running back props for TCU. I think they're going to probably try to test this secondary with Quentin Johnston. Is an absolutely outstanding receiver for TCU. Don't forget about Tay Barber. I mean, they absolutely do have some really good receivers, but the single player prop that I like the most for TCU in this championship game is simply Max Duggan over rushing yards.
There you go.
Because he just will lay it all out on the line in this game. If he has an opening to take off for 15 yards, he's going to do it. He is a character kid. He'll make any play that will give his team a chance to win the football game. He's done it all season long. And you only need 29 rushing yards out of him to go over that prop. His rushing yards number is 28.5 for this game. I think he can get over that number because the way I see it, Georgia doesn't stop the run, he'll get that number. If Georgia does stop the run on the running backs, well, you could do the fake, fake the handoff to the running back, quarterback keeps it, and then there'll be some room elsewhere for the guy. And he doesn't go down off initial contact. This guy will someone will try to tackle him. He'll try to keep running. That is how tough this kid is, Max Duggan. So I like that prop for him, over 28.5 rushing yards. Max Duggan for TCU. So those are the props I like early. Connor, any props that you've got circled?
Before I go, that's it. Max, over 28.5. I've written down. Also, this anytime touchdown, to get one, it's plus 125. You could maybe sprinkle it on that. And on the flip side, to me, Bowers, I'm going to take not only his over 62.5, his anytime touchdown plus 115. I think they have, it's tough. This guy's huge, and I think they need to get him the rock with big plays. And I think down at the goal line, he's just so big, he'll get a touchdown. So those are mine as well. That's basically the two I had circled, those two guys.
Yeah. I think the key is for either side's got a key piece on offense banged up going into this game. We talked about Kendre Miller for TCU. For Georgia, it's Ladd McConkey. That guy definitely was not quite 100% if you look at the Ohio State game for the Bulldogs. And he's probably one of their more relied upon receivers definitely in that offense. So it'll be interesting to see what their status is, how healthy they are on Monday as we approach kickoff.
Last thing, too, with Duggan, 110 versus K-State, the Big 12 championship game, whatever. I think you have 57 against Michigan, similar. And a game on the line, he's going to have to make some big plays, scramble out. I thought if anything was in the 20s when I saw that, I'm all over it. Yeah, over.
All right, good stuff there. All right, boss, anything in the player props for this game that you are circling as of right now?
Only thing I'm going to say is, and I don't even see the number on it yet, but first score touchdown for sure. I seen TCU go for it. They're risky, so they won't be quick to kick the field goal. And if Georgia is the stand-up team, according to the book's number, then they should run the ball down and score on the ground as well. So first score, 7 points.
There you go. First score of the game to be a touchdown, boss, like in that prop. A big Ragoo, player props. What do you like?
Yeah, I'm on board with the Duggan deal, and Connor brought it up to plus 125 on the sprinkle for Max, to get a touchdown. I wouldn't try to get cute and try to get any player props on TDs here. Not so much the TCU side, but one thing that caught my eye a little bit. If you think it's going to be low scoring early, and if you don't plan on an explosion going late, but it might be worth a look. I think the touchdown total was like 7.5 for the game, and it's at a plus 105. So that's something you might entertain. But I'm on the Duggan props. That's all I got right now. Then as of right now, and then I'm leaning towards under 7.5 touchdowns for the game total plus 105.
All right, there we go. Some great prop looks. Conor Mac, I think, had to bounce. He's got prior commitments at 5:40 Pacific out on the West Coast, but we're about to wrap up in a few minutes anyway. But before we do, again, this is on Monday, this game. Make sure with the props especially, shop around. Make sure you find the absolute best of the number. Very important. Because with player props, I've seen it time and time again, NFL, NBA, NHL, all the other sports, you bet props, let's say you could find a quarterback rushing yards over 36.5 in one book. Some other book will have 39.5. So you don't want the 39.5 with that prop over when you can get 36.5 elsewhere. So very important, definitely, to shop around, especially with player props. You'll see wide variance, wide discrepancy in numbers, one book to the next, more so than ever with the player props. So if you're going to bet them in this national championship game, very important to do your due diligence, shop around, make sure you find the best number you can at all opportunities. Before we wrap it up here in just a second, by the way, thank you to those of you in the chat joining us here as we're doing this on a Wednesday night, January 4th, just 5 days out before the national championship game takes place on Monday. Hit the like button. We appreciate that very much. We will be back. We'll give our final thoughts in terms of just side and total, what we like initially. We're not going to do a quote unquote best bet segment like we normally do because it's still 5 days away, but we'll recap what we like, side, total, and any props right after this. We'll hear from First Manscaped and Southtown 101. All right, Southtown 101. When you're in San Antonio, Texas, stop in. Great food, drinks, live music, DJs, karaoke, and manscaped.com. Promo code PubSports, 20% off, free shipping as well on anything on the Manscaped site with the promo code PubSports. Before we wrap it up, again, I have just had a blast all season doing this show for college football with my colleagues, my right-hand guys, if you will, friends of the show, my DJ Big Boss, Big Ragoo, Conor Mac. Love doing shows with them. I think we've been doing this together on various platforms too, by the way, for 3-4 years now, this college football show on Saturday mornings. And I just hope, fingers crossed, hopefully the Lord Gambler above will let us be back together again in September, August and September upcoming for another season.
You know it.
Yeah, it'll be back before you know it. You're right. That's what I find out now as I'm getting older, Big Ragoo, is that these seasons come up again quicker than you ever could fucking believe. And, you
It's
think
crazy,
the
isn't it?
season just ended a week ago and it's back again. And so college football will be back again before you know it for sure. Boss, we'll start with you. Just a little brief recap, side total, what you're liking initially as of right now for the title game.
I'm going TCU first half and full game. Give me the points. I want all the points. Split the unit in half. Take it half on the first half, half on the end. Sprinkle on the money line. You might be living in the year of seeing this team do this to this Georgia team. So wouldn't be nothing too crazy. So sprinkle on the money line. And I'm betting the total live. I can't play it no other way. And once again, I like the first score to be a touchdown, and I'm not sure what the plus money would be if we take TCU to score first. That might give us some plus money right there, but I like that as well.
Plus 150.
There you go.
Plus
TCU to score
150 on
first.
that. Yep. There you go.
Plus
First
150.
score of the game. Yeah, TCU, which obviously they got on the J.J. McCarthy pick 6 in the first quarter against Michigan in the semifinal. That was their way to get the first points of that game. Although Michigan had every opportunity to get the first points, and some genius decided, let's do a trick play with the great running game we've got on 4th and goal at the 1-yard line there. And obviously that blew up in their face. Unbelievably bad call to do that. Big Ragoo, a recap of what you're liking as of right now for the big game.
Yeah, I like the first half under 31.5. I like that. And I might as well jump on board with TCU at +7 at -105. That's per DraftKings currently. And I also like the Dugan prop over 28.5 yards rushing. And sprinkle this +100 at under 7.5 touchdowns for the game. Under 7.5 touchdowns for the game.
Yeah, we could see points, but I think we're gonna see more field goals this time around, at least a few. It wouldn't surprise me in the least. All right, for me, it's really TCU plus the 13 that's out there right now. I do like that, although I might split it up. I might end up doing a triple where I go smaller on each instead of one bet on the full game, a little smaller on first quarter, first half, full game when it comes to TCU, because I do worry they might get pushed around later in the game by that Georgia team, just in terms of the overall size, speed they have. But I don't think TCU will be overwhelmed, but they could, struggle a bit in the second half. They were kind of hanging on at the end against Michigan after a great first half. So I like TCU. I definitely like them full game, but I might also include it with the first quarter, first half, smaller bets. The over I like, but I don't know. I'll bet a little pregame, but a lot of it's going to be live because I could see a 3-0, 7-3 first quarter, very tight early, and then it explodes. Like that's been the pattern of the last 2 championship games. So a little on the pregame over, a lot more will be on the live over, assuming we might get a sluggish start with the scoring in this game. And then as far as the player props go, Max Duggan over 28.5 rushing yards for TCU is probably my favorite prop altogether as of right now on this game in terms of the prop market. But I also like the great tight end who's definitely got an NFL future for Georgia, Brock Bowers, over 62.5 receiving yards. I think he will get up and over. And TCU's been vulnerable to the passing game over the middle at times this year. So that should set up well for Mr. Bowers here for Georgia in this game. Great stuff. Big Ragoo, DJ Big Boss, to Conor Mac as well. It's been a hell of a college football season, another exciting one, and we hope we can wrap it up on Monday with a great national championship game, TCU and Georgia. You haven't seen The Last of Us, though, yet, because we've got ourselves a big live bet stream for the national championship game coming up next Monday night at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern. I know I'll be jumping on. Big Ragoo, DJ Big Boss, Conor Mac will all be getting involved in it right here on Pub Sports Radio. The national championship game live bet stream for TCU Georgia Monday night. Looking forward to that. And it should be, hopefully, we hope, a great title game and a great fitting end to the college football season. It's got a tough act to follow, boys. I mean, the TCU, Michigan, Georgia, Ohio State games were epic. Those were unbelievable football games on Saturday. This one's got a tough act to follow, but all we can do is hope that it does.
That's it. I mean, high level billing for this one, guys. Big Goliath versus little guy, and I think the little guy is going to come out. If the guy upstairs is looking down Leach, look out, Georgia.
And one last thing I do want to point out, then we'll wrap it up. You can't sugarcoat that they're 10-3-1 against the spread this year, TCU. So they've been completely undervalued all season. And have they lost a game by this kind of margin all season? No. Even their losses, they've been tight. They've been close. They have not been blown out this year, this TCU team. So that's why another reason why I think it's just a few too many in this one. Should be a great game. We look forward to it. We'll see you Monday night on the live bet stream right here on Pub Sports Radio for the national championship game. It's been a blast working with these guys all season. We thank everyone in the chat and everyone that joined us all season on the College Football Pub Hub Show. Hit the like button. We appreciate it very much. For Conor Mac, DJ Big Boss, Big Ragoo, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a wonderful week. Enjoy the championship game. Good luck with your wagers. Tune in for the live bet stream. College football live bet stream for the title game, TCU Georgia, right here on Pub Sports Radio, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern time next Monday. Enjoy the game and good luck.
Welcome to another edition of The Walking Dead.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of EPL on
Class is in session, hitting the books on Pub Sports.
This is another exciting edition of the main event on Talking Ant.